Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are strapping ourselves in for a bit of a wild ride, really, a time travel journey to a moment that's just, well, it's hard to pin down, the year 1500.
It really is a fascinating point in time.
Yeah, because if you try and picture it, it's like this global split screen, isn't it? On one side, you've got the absolute peak of the Renaissance firing up, Leonardo da Vinci sketching flying machines, tanks even.
Pushing boundaries, yeah.
Totally. And Copernicus is, quietly working out that maybe, just maybe, the Earth isn't the center of everything.
A huge intellectual shift beginning there.
But then you flip to the other side of that screen, and wow, the Middle Ages are still casting these really long, dark shadows. Across Europe, people are utterly convinced, really believe, in magic, witchcraft, the devil being a real force.
Absolutely. It's not metaphorical for them. It's tangible reality.
And that belief isn't just abstract. It leads directly, brutally, to people being accused and executed as witches. So you have this incredible contradiction.
Stark contrast.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this. We've got these fantastic sources you've provided, and we're going to use them as our map, essentially. A time travel journey, looking at these parallel histories happening at the same time. What's going on in Scotland, while something totally different is happening in Wittenberg, or Tenochtitlan, or Istanbul, all at once.
Right. It's not just a European story, which
Yeah.
is key. It's trying to build that global picture.
Exactly.
And that's the real challenge for historians and for us here, trying to synthesize that picture. You've got these radically different cultural tempos, different levels of development happening side by side. Historians sometimes call it cultural inequality.
Okay.
You see these whole civilizations flourishing, incredibly advanced in their own ways, but completely separate. No knowledge of each other often.
Right.
So our mission really is to dig into that complexity. Were there hidden similarities between these distant cultures, maybe? Or did they develop on completely separate tracks, making conflict almost inevitable when they finally did meet? We'll look at the big players, the Ottomans, but also cultures that were maybe less known then, like the Inca, trying to create this detailed snapshot of the whole world around 1500.
And honestly, from looking at the sources, the world back then is so much stranger and way more fascinating than you might expect. We're going to cover, well, everything. Secret coffee houses disguised as barbershops in Istanbul.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Monks playing football in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
A fatal game, no less.
Mm-hmm.
Revolutionary ideas hitting someone on the toilet.
Literally.
And the absolutely mind-boggling story of how a whole continent got its name, basically because of a massive map-reading error. This should really shift how you see the start of our modern world.
Absolutely. It's a pivotal moment.
Okay, let's dive in. Section 1, Europe. Reformation, Renaissance, and this hidden archive.
Right.
Let's start up north. Scotland, around 1500. Surprisingly, it's having a bit of an economic and cultural moment. New universities, fancy palaces going up.
Mm-hmm. A real upswing.
But the church's power is still, absolute. And we tend to think of monasteries as these quiet places, right? Just monks copying manuscripts.
The stereotypical image, yeah. Libraries and prayer.
But the sources show something, well, livelier. And sometimes darker. They were actually places for games, sports even.
Which leads us to this amazing little anecdote.
Yeah, this football match. Near Glasgow, around 1500, the source talks about this game where loads of men are chasing a ball like wild things, playing, as one guy wrote, according to the custom of our country.
Custom of the country, right. And what turns this from just a quirky detail into something more is the source of the information.
Okay.
This specific game involved priests and ordinary guys, laymen. And it ended tragically. We only know the details because one priest involved, John Smith from Glasgow, felt so incredibly guilty about what happened.
Ah, so he confessed.
He did. He described trying to tackle an opponent, a guy named Robert, who apparently had the ball. The Latin is pilum querendo ad pedes habuit,
Which means,
literally leading the ball at his feet while running. It suggests skill, control, not just kicking it wildly. This might actually be the first written description of someone dribbling a ball in European sport.
wow.
So during this tackle attempt, Smith collides with his own teammate, John Patterson. Patterson goes down, doesn't move, and dies soon after.
Oh, wow. A fatal sports accident documented from 1500.
Exactly. And the reason we have this incredibly vivid personal story, Smith needed absolution. He appealed all the way to the papal penitentiary in Rome.
The highest court, basically.
Highest spiritual court, yes. And this archive in Rome, it's unbelievable. It holds thousands of these intensely personal appeals from all over Europe, people begging forgiveness for sins, everything from priests breaking celibacy vows to, well, murder.
So it's like a secret window into everyday life, the messy bits.
Totally unvarnished. The brutal, desperate realities people face 500 years ago. It's an incredible resource.
And it wasn't just ordinary people confessing accidents. The sources show this archive reveals some pretty deep moral problems right inside the church itself. Serious stuff confessed from monasteries, convents.
Oh, definitely. The details can be genuinely shocking. There's one case mentioned from Piacenza. 5 nuns, all from noble families apparently, hated their abbess, hated her so much they tried to poison her.
Good grief.
And when that didn't work, they actually hired a man to sneak into the convent at night and suffocate her in her bed.
They confessed that.
They confess that premeditated murder, seeking forgiveness from the church.
And did they get it?
That's the crucial part for understanding the era. Absolution was often granted, even for things like murder, but it came with conditions. Penance, obviously, but also, crucially, fines. Payments to the church.
Money angle.
Exactly. Priest Smith, the footballer, he got his absolution, but he was banned from the altar for 6 months and had to pay a fine. And the system, the church acting as this, giant bureau of fines for getting into heaven, this became the absolute lightning rod for the Reformation.
Right. People were paying to have their sins forgiven. The oblasts, the indulgences.
That practice.
And that's the tension that finally snaps when Martin Luther comes along. His 95 Theses in 1517 were aimed squarely at this sale of indulgences.
The tipping point.
So how did Luther manage to make his ideas spread like wildfire? I mean, it tore Christianity apart.
Technology. Simple as that, in many ways. He harnessed the printing press. It was only about 70 years old, still relatively new tech.
Right, Gutenberg.
Exactly. Luther used it brilliantly. His Propositiones Wider das Oblas, the arguments against indulgences, weren't just stuck on a church door. They were printed, copied, distributed almost instantly.
So it went viral, 16th century style.
It was the fastest spreading idea Europe had ever seen up to that point. Quickly translated from academic Latin into everyday German, it basically democratized the argument overnight, took power away from just the clergy.
Okay, and here's where the story gets really personal and kind of weird. Luther himself claimed the exact moment he had his big breakthrough idea, justification by faith alone, meaning you don't need the church selling you forgiveness.
Yeah. Where was he?
He said he was sitting on his cloaca.
His what?
His toilet. Literally.
No way,
Seriously. For ages, people thought it was just a story, maybe metaphorical. But then archaeologists dug up his house in Wittenberg. Yeah. They found the annex. And in it, a specific stone latrine seat about 30 centimeters across, with a pretty clever drain system. It confirmed his own account. The idea that launched the Protestant Reformation, this massive shift in Western history, apparently came to him while he was on the loo.
That is incredible. A revolution born in the bathroom. It's almost too perfect a metaphor.
Isn't it? But Luther himself is such a bundle of contradictions. He brilliantly attacks the church for exploiting people's fear of purgatory for cash.
Right, a very rational critique of a corrupt system.
Yet his own mind is still deeply medieval in other ways. He absolutely believed the devil was real, physically real. Claimed he threw an ink pot at him once. And he fully supported persecuting witches.
So how do the sources square that? The theological leap forward alongside this, deep-seated medieval terror.
It seems like it's just the reality of Europe around 1500. Beliefs were all jumbled up. At the exact same time, Luther is talking about fighting the devil.
Yeah.
Nicholas Copernicus is quietly figuring out his heliocentric model. The Earth goes around the sun. A massive challenge to the whole theological worldview, where humans are the center of God's creation.
Fundamentally disruptive idea.
And what was Luther's reaction?
He hated it, called Copernicus a fool, said the idea of the Earth moving went against the Bible and common sense. It shows how hard it was for scientific reason to break through centuries of accepted theology. It wasn't instant.
No, clearly not. And that fear wasn't just theoretical. It had real deadly consequences. During Luther's time, there was a terrible drought in Germany. Crops failed. Cattle died.
Okay, natural disaster.
But people in Wittenberg didn't see it that way. They didn't blame the weather. They blamed magic. Weather magic, pasture poisoning.
Oh, right. Scapegoating.
Exactly. And that panic led very quickly to people being identified as witches and sorcerers and burned just outside the city gates.
So while the Renaissance is blooming in Italy with this new focus on the individual,
in Germany, the start of the modern age feels much more medieval. Much more driven by fear and superstition than we often think.
A very different vibe, yeah. Stark contrasts, indeed.
Okay, let's pivot. Section 2. Collision and contrast, the Americas.
Right. While Europe's tied up in its internal battles, faith versus science, the age of global encounter is kicking off, really, because of a gigantic mistake.
A world-changing navigational error. Christopher Columbus, 1492, lands in the Bahamas, and he's completely convinced he's reached Asia, the Indies.
Despite being about 11,000 nautical miles short, an almost unbelievable miscalculation of the Earth's size.
So the whole European discovery of the Americas starts with someone being spectacularly lost.
Pretty much. And the naming confusion just continues. Columbus died in 1506, still insisting he'd found the outskirts of Asia, maybe Japan.
So who figured it out?
Amerigo Vespucci. He sailed a few times in the early 1500s, explored more coastline, and realized, wait a minute, this isn't Asia, this is enormous. This is a mundus novus, a new world.
Ah, hence the name.
Exactly. In 1507, these German mapmakers, Martin Wolsey-Müller and Matthias Ringman, draw the first map showing it as a separate continent. And they decide to name it America, the feminine form of Amerigo, because they felt he was the one who truly understood what had been found.
And that map survived.
Amazingly, yes. The source mentions a small version of it was found again just in 2012, tucked away in an archive in Munich, lost between some geometry papers for 500 years.
Incredible. So while Europe is slowly getting its head around this new world, they're crashing into these incredibly complex societies already there, like the Aztecs. Around 1500, their capital, Tenochtitlan,
Yeah, right under modern Mexico City.
was at its absolute height.
And the scale is just staggering, especially when you consider their tech level. They were basically Bronze Age. No wheel for transport or pottery, no draft animals, no iron tools. Same as the Inca down in Peru.
Yet they built this.
Yet they built this huge, sophisticated city. By 1519, when the Spanish arrived, Tenochtitlan had maybe 300,000 people?
300,000.
Yeah. You have to grasp what that means. That's way bigger than Seville or any city in Spain at the time. Bigger than Paris, bigger than London, bigger than Rome.
Mind-blowing. That alone should have told the Spanish something.
You'd think. And then there's the cultural contrast, which immediately made the Spanish suspicious. The Aztecs were obsessed with cleanliness.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Strict laws against being drunk in public adultery. They had street cleaners. People bathed daily, the ruler, sometimes twice a day. They used soap from a special tree, the Copaxicotl.
Meanwhile, back in Europe,
Exactly. Europe was filthy. Plague was common. People rarely bathed. They thought water could let dangers into the skin. So when the Spanish see these savages being meticulously clean, using deodorant, mouthwash, even hair removal stuff,
they don't see it as advanced.
no, they see it as weird, alien, probably part of some pagan ritual. Their hygiene actually made the Spanish more suspicious, not less. It marked them as other.
This perverse logic.
Isn't it? And beyond hygiene, they were incredibly organized. Those famous floating gardens, the chinampas, feeding that huge population, huge markets. And think what they gave the world. Avocado, chili, tomato, cacao for chocolate. Those words, those foods come straight from their language, Noel.
Our whole diet changed because of them.
Fundamentally.
Yeah.
But there's a darker side. Their religion was intense, demanding lots of gods, and yes, human sacrifice was central to appeasing them. Researchers think at least 13 different gods received human offerings.
And then ritual cannibalism.
That too, yes. Parts of the sacrificed were consumed in temples. It was part of the ritual cycle.
Okay, so for the Spanish conquistadors, seeing that's their justification, right?
Yeah.
These people are barbaric. We have to stop them.
Absolutely. It became the perfect excuse for the brutality that followed. But the sources warn us to be really careful with the Spanish accounts of the scale of it.
How so?
Well, one Franciscan friar claimed the Aztecs sacrificed 20,000 prisoners in a single go, just one day. Archaeologists have looked at the main temple sites, the Templo Mayor, and they say, that number seems impossible. A massive exaggeration.
No idea, Chad.
Politics and money. The conquest was incredibly expensive, destructive, and violent. The conquistadors needed to sell it back home to the Spanish crown. By painting the Aztecs as monstrous, inhuman demons, sacrificing people on an industrial scale.
It makes the conquest seem like a righteous crusade, not a gold grab.
Precisely. It justifies the cost, justifies the killing. We're saving souls and stopping evil, not we're destroying a civilization for its gold.
And thousands of kilometers south, another huge civilization, the Inca in Peru, famous from Machu Picchu. They faced a similar fate.
A very similar trajectory, yeah. Striking parallels with the Aztecs. The Inca also lacked writing as we know it. No wheel, no iron.
But they were amazing engineers, weren't they?
Incredible engineers and administrators, especially given the Andes Mountains' extreme terrain. They didn't have writing, but they had quipu, these amazing knotted cores.
Right, the knots recorded information.
Complex information, population counts, taxes, census data. It was a sophisticated bureaucratic tool, just not pen and paper. And their road system, tens of thousands of kilometers, suspension bridges, rivaled anything the Romans built, allowed them to control this vast empire.
So, highly organized, great engineers,
Yeah.
but still vulnerable.
Utterly vulnerable because of one thing: gold.
Same story.
Same tragic story. For the Inca, gold was sacred, linked to the sun god, used for decoration, for ritual, not really currency, but for the Spanish Pizarro and his men, it was just wealth waiting to be taken.
And that greed.
Led directly to the swift, brutal, and almost complete annihilation of these ancient American cultures, all within a generation, really, driven by the lust for gold.
A devastating collision. Okay, let's move eastwards. Section 3, the crossroads east and south.
Right. While Spain was focused west, other European powers, and indeed the Ottomans themselves, were shaping the east. The whole game changed dramatically just before 1500 when the Ottomans took Constantinople in 1453.
That's often seen as the real end of the Middle Ages, right?
For many historians, yes. The fall of the Christian Byzantine Empire, the rise of this massive new Islamic power straddling Europe and Asia, a real turning point.
And the Sultan's power base was the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. Sounds like quite the place.
Well, it was basically a city within a city. It could hold up to 5,000 people. And that includes the famous harem.
Right, the harem. What did the sources say about that?
Well, it got huge. By the late 1500s, maybe 1,200 women lived there. Most were non-Muslim because Islamic law forbade enslaving fellow Muslims. They were often captives of war or bought in slave markets.
And it was completely closed off.
Very strictly guarded. Haram means forbidden. Outsiders couldn't see the women. But what's interesting is many women in the harem, spread across like 300 rooms, were just part of the palace staff, really. They might never even meet the Sultan in their entire lives.
Wow, a world unto itself. And outside the palace, Christians, Jews?
Generally tolerated within Istanbul. They lived in their own districts, had to pay a special poll tax, but they could practice their faiths. And around 1500, something interesting starts happening that crosses those religious divides.
What's that?
A shared secret passion for a new drink. Highly addictive, stimulating, and at first, totally forbidden.
Don't tell me coffee.
Exactly, coffee. Yeah. Decades before it hit Europe, big time.
Where did it come from?
Smuggled in, probably by pilgrims returning from Yemen. The religious authorities, the imams, figured out pretty quickly that this stuff was potent. They saw it as a drug, making people idle, encouraging them to gather and chat, maybe plot, so they banned it. Heavy penalties.
People still wanted it.
Desperately. And this is where you see that classic human ingenuity. Entrepreneurs and coffee lovers found a brilliant loophole. They disguised their coffee dens as barbershops.
Barbershops, why?
Because going to the barber for a shave, a trim, and a chat was perfectly acceptable. So you'd go in, get your grooming done, and discreetly get served a cup of this amazing new brew on the side, maybe passed off as medicine.
Huh, that's brilliant. Hiding in plain sight.
Totally. This underground coffee scene thrived until it just got too big to police. Eventually, the authorities gave up, maybe realized the fears of sedition were overblown, and the first official legal coffee house opened in Istanbul in 1554, the start of a global phenomenon.
Amazing. Okay, so Ottomans consolidating power. Further east, India.
Yeah, another major power shift happening there. A new Muslim dynasty, the Mughals, starting to take control of North India from 1526 under Muhammad Akbar, known as Akbar the Great.
The Grand Mughal.
That's him. And his success was partly down to military tech again. He got hold of advanced cannon designs, likely from Ottoman experts. That firepower helped him carve out this enormous empire. We're talking maybe 100 million subjects.
Huge. Only China was bigger.
Probably, yeah. But Akbar wasn't just about conquest. He was a deep thinker, a philosopher, a builder. In 1569, he starts building a whole new capital city, Fatehpur Sikri.
And he had this vision.
Yeah.
Quite radical for the time.
Incredibly radical. He genuinely believed that for his empire to thrive, with its mix of Hindus, Muslims, and others, there had to be peaceful coexistence. Tolerance wasn't just nice, it was essential for state stability.
So what did he do?
Well, his personal version of Islam was very liberal, very open. He actively debated religion with scholars from different faiths. He married a Hindu princess. And crucially, he got rid of the special tax that non-Muslims usually had to pay in Islamic states. A huge move towards equality.
Trying to create a unified state, basically.
Yeah. Exactly. And he built that philosophy right into the architecture of Fatehpur Sikri. It's this amazing blend of traditional Islamic styles and local Hindu design elements.
Like what?
Well, the throne pillar in his main audience hall is completely unique. It doesn't look Islamic at all. It looks like an ancient Indian world pillar, the kind of thing from Hindu myth that holds up the cosmos. It's a powerful visual symbol of him trying to fuse these cultures, almost certainly designed by non-Muslim craftsmen.
A city built on tolerance. So what happened to it?
That's the tragedy. This amazing city, this utopian vision, it lasted only about 10 years.
10 years. Why?
They ran out of water. Simple as that. Bad planning, maybe a changing climate. They couldn't sustain the city. Akbar had to abandon it and move his court elsewhere. A brilliant idea foiled by basic plumbing, essentially.
Oh, that's heartbreaking, all that effort.
The real what might have been moment in history.
And the sources make a connection here, don't they? Between Fatehpur Sikri and something happening back in Europe.
Yeah, a really interesting symbolic parallel. Fatehpur Sikri was this massive statement of power and Akbar's vision. And at the exact same time, 7,000 kilometers away in Rome, they're starting construction on St. Peter's Basilica.
The heart of the Catholic Church.
The absolute heart. This colossal building, designed to hold 20,000 people. Michelangelo would eventually do the dome, cementing his fame. But the massive contradiction is...
Now they paid for it.
Exactly. The funding mechanism for St. Peter's was heavily reliant on selling those indulgences, the ablos, the very practice that drove Martin Luther nuts and triggered the Reformation. So St. Peter's stands as this monument to incredible artistic ambition, but also to the very financial practices that fractured Christianity forever.
Wow. The ultimate symbol of that contradictory age. Okay, let's bring it back to Italy then.
Yeah.
Section 4. Renaissance, innovation, and judging other cultures, or maybe just vanity.
Right, the heartland of the Renaissance. The big idea here was consciously rejecting the medieval past, which they saw as barbaric, and rediscovering the classical focus on humanity, on realistic representation.
And the ultimate symbol of that is Michelangelo's David, finished 1504. Huge statue.
5 meters tall, 6 tons of marble, and crucially, commissioned by the Wool Weavers Guild of Florence, not the church primarily.
Ah, so it's a civic symbol too.
Absolutely. It represents the power and confidence of the rising merchant class, the Florentine bourgeoisie. Their money and influence were challenging the old hierarchies of church and nobility. David, the clever underdog beating the giant, was their perfect symbol.
And this focus shifts art itself, right? Away from just saints and Bible stories.
Completely. Painters start looking at real people. Portraits become huge, especially portraits of women. Think Botticelli.
The birth of Venus.
Exactly, painted around 1485. The model was supposedly Simonetta Vespucci, called the most beautiful woman in Florence, and she's depicted nude.
Which was shocking.
Revolutionary. Before the Renaissance, about the only acceptable nude figure in art was Eve, representing the fall, sin. But rediscovering classical Greek and Roman art gave artists the excuse, the intellectual cover, to celebrate the human body again in a sensual, humanist way.
And this new self-awareness, this focus on appearance, it wasn't just in paintings.
Oh no, it hit street level, especially in wealthy cities like Venice. Women there became obsessed with achieving the Bella Bionda look, beautiful blonde hair.
But Italian women mostly have dark hair, right?
Exactly. So they went to incredible lengths to lighten it. The sources list like 25 different oils, dyes, and concoctions they use, including actual gold dust sometimes to get that shimmering effect.
How did they do the bleaching?
They had this special hat called a solana, basically a wide-brimmed straw hat with the crown cut out. They'd pull their hair through the hole, spread it over the brim, douse it in this bleaching liquid called aqua bionda, and then sit out in the sun for hours.
Oh, that's dedication to fashion.
And it was also about defying authority. The church, the local bishops, they kept issuing these rules, sumptuary laws, trying to limit luxury, dictating what clothes people could wear, how many pearls, even how high their heels or hats could be.
And the Venetian women just ignored them.
Pretty much. We have this amazing story of one woman, Isabella, daughter of a rich guy. She actually wrote directly to the Pope.
To the Pope. About fashion.
Yeah. She basically argued, look, I'm kind of short. I need to find a good husband. If I can't wear heels and headwear that are 3 fingers higher than the bishop allows, I won't attract the right sort of match.
Did it work?
Apparently so. The pressure from these wealthy families was so strong, the women in Venice often managed to get exemptions from these rules. Vanity and money won out.
Incredible. And this focus on the individual, the normal person, culminates in perhaps the most famous portrait ever.
Has to be. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Painted around 1503. Lisa del Giocondo wasn't royalty, not a saint. She was the wife of a Florentine merchant, a middle-class citizen, immortalized.
And the painting itself was revolutionary.
Absolutely. That technique, the sfumato, the smoky, blurred edges, especially around the eyes and mouth, that gives her that mysterious, lifelike quality. And the direct gaze, the hint of a smile. It felt alive in a way portraits hadn't before. It captures a fleeting psychological moment. People were blown away.
And Da Vinci himself.
Yeah.
The ultimate Renaissance man. Art, science, engineering, all mixed up.
Totally. His art came directly out of his scientific studies. He filled notebooks, 13,000 pages of sketches, survived studying everything. Anatomy, how water flows, how birds fly.
His fly machines? The ornithopters.
Yeah, amazing designs based on bird wings. Too heavy and complex to actually work back then, but the vision was incredible.
But he wasn't just an artist in an ivory tower.
Yeah.
He was also very aware of politics, money.
Oh, absolutely. He knew where the power and the funding was. He was a brilliant artist, but also a pragmatist, a bit of a mercenary even. He actively pitched his services as a military engineer.
Who?
To Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan. A powerful guy, always fighting wars with neighbors like Venice. Milan spent like 2/3 of its budget on military stuff.
And Da Vinci wrote him a job application.
An amazing one. It's basically a sales pitch. He promises Sforza he can invent incredible war machines, armored cars, early tanks basically, a giant crossbow that could fling huge rocks, multi-barreled cannons like primitive machine guns. He's saying, hire me, I'll help you crush your enemies, whatever it took to get funding for his projects.
He really wanted that funding.
Desperately. And Italy, apparently, wasn't even big enough for his ambition. This is maybe the most surprising detail from the sources.
Go on.
In the early 1500s, he actually tried to get work abroad, way abroad. A letter turned up in the archives in Istanbul back in the 1950s, dated 1503, written in Arabic.
Arabic. Who was addressed to?
To the Ottoman Sultan, Bayezid II.
Leonardo da Vinci applied for a job with the Sultan.
He did. He wrote something like, I, your humble servant, hear you want to build a bridge from Galata to Istanbul, but haven't found an engineer up to the job. Then he pitches his design for the world's biggest bridge, using these complex parabolic arches built so incredibly high, he claimed, people would be too scared to cross it.
That is absolutely unreal. He'd work for anyone.
It seems his main driver was getting the resources to make his incredible ideas reality. Whether the patron was a Catholic duke or a Muslim sultan, maybe didn't matter as much as the opportunity itself.
Wow. Okay, section 5. The edge of isolation and global synthesis. Let's go even further east.
Right. Well, Da Vinci's trying to get gigs with the Ottomans. Other Europeans, the Portuguese mainly, are pushing east, looking for Japan, Marco Polo's legendary Chupangu, land of gold. When they finally get there, around 1540, they are completely floored by what they find.
In what way?
This one Portuguese sailor wrote, and the sources quote him, "They are in all things the opposite of us. This wouldn't be a big deal if they were barbarians, but what's amazing is they seem thoroughly cultured. They realized they'd stumbled on a civilization that, in many ways, felt more sophisticated than their own."
Like how? What impressed them?
Literacy, for one. In Japan, reading and writing were really widespread, way more than in Europe, where it was mostly clergy and nobles. And they had this unique everyday tool for information. Fans.
Fans, like hand fans.
Exactly. But they weren't just for keeping cool. Everyone, nobles, commoners, used them constantly. They wrote important stuff on them. Business notes, reminders, poems, legal details. People would be standing in the street conducting deals, constantly flicking open and checking their fans.
So they were like 16th century smartphones.
That's the comparison the source makes. Your essential portable information device. Nobody went out without their fan.
Okay, so the Japanese are literate, organized. Were they impressed by the Portuguese arrivals?
Not really, no. Quite the opposite. They found the Europeans, who they called long noses, pretty crude, lacking basic manners, hygiene. They thought Europeans had physical defects.
Ouch. What specifically did they object to?
Well, the bathing thing again. Japanese bathed daily, Europeans almost never. Eating habits were a big one. The Japanese used chopsticks, had done for centuries. Europeans were mostly eating with their hands, maybe using a knife sometimes. The Japanese found it abhorrent, barbaric.
So the Europeans were the barbarians in this encounter.
That's literally what the Japanese called them, Namban barbarians from the south.
So what did these southern barbarians have that Japan actually wanted? Anything?
Only one thing, really. A technology Japan didn't have. Firearms.
Ah, guns.
Yep. Portugal arrived with arquebuses, those early matchlock guns. Japan at the time was deep in civil wars between rival feudal lords, the shoguns, and daimyo. They immediately saw the potential of these weapons.
So they adopted them.
And how? They didn't just buy them, they brilliantly reverse engineered them, improved them, and started mass producing them. Thousands upon thousands. After about 1550, guns started deciding major battles in Japan.
Okay, so far that sounds like a familiar story. Tech transfer changes warfare.
But here's where the story takes a completely unique turn, something that basically never happens anywhere else in history.
Huh.
By the end of the 16th century, maybe early 17th century, the ruling warrior class, the samurai, they make a collective conscious decision.
Which is?
They decide firearms are dishonorable, unworthy of a true warrior.
Wait, they reject the superior weapon?
They reject it. They go back to the sword. Gun production almost completely stops by around 1640. They effectively uninvent the gun for themselves.
Why on earth would they do that? Give up a military advantage?
It came down to their core philosophy, Bushido, the way of the warrior. For a samurai, honor, skill, courage, facing your enemy directly, dying well, that was everything.
And guns spoiled that.
Completely. The idea that some low-born peasant, some upstart shooter with no training in swordsmanship or lineage, could kill a noble, skilled samurai from a distance with just a bang and some powder, it was seen as degrading, an abomination. It robbed combat of its ritual, its honor, its meaning.
So they chose honor over effectiveness.
They chose their cultural code over technological superiority. Dying bravely with your sword was infinitely preferable to winning dishonorably with a gun. It's an absolutely stunning example of a culture prioritizing its values over practical military advantage. And it shaped Japan's isolationist policy for centuries after.
That is truly remarkable. So wrapping this all up, looking back at 1500 globally, it's just a world of these incredible extremes all happening at once.
Absolutely. You've got Luther terrified of the devil while Copernicus is rearranging the cosmos.
You've got the Aztecs with incredible urban hygiene, far cleaner than plague-ridden Europe.
And the samurai choosing the sword over the gun, magic alongside science, ritual cleanliness next to filth, honor trumping technology.
So the big takeaway is,
I think it's that people everywhere built these amazing, complex, sophisticated civilizations, often completely unaware of each other, each brilliant in its own way. But when those worlds finally collided through exploration, trade, conquest, war, that incredible diversity was often trampled, lost, sometimes violently, sometimes just crowded out.
and the world becomes a bit more the same.
It starts down that path. The time around 1500, with all its chaos and contradictions and new connections, really is the messy, unpredictable beginning of the accelerated globalization that defines our world today.
It really is just an astonishing snapshot when you put it all together. 1500, a deadly football game happening in Scotland, a world-changing idea popping into someone's head on a toilet in Germany, while 300,000 people are living this super clean, organized life in Tenochtitlan, and an emperor in India is trying to build a state based on religious tolerance. It's dizzying.
It really is.
So what does this journey back to 1500 mean for you listening now? I think this deep dive really shows that progress isn't some neat straight line.
Yeah.
It's messy. Every culture had its own rhythm, its own strengths, its own blind spots.
Yeah.
And the modern world we live in wasn't built according to some grand plan. It feels like it emerged from this chaotic mix of brilliance, superstition, greed, accident, and just the sheer force of cultures bumping into each other.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And think about some of those turning points we discussed. St. Peter's Basilica, that need for funding, raised through means Luther found morally bankrupt, ends up splitting Western Christianity.
Right, a direct consequence.
Or Akbar's amazing city, Fatehpur Sikri, his vision of a tolerant, multi-faith state, defeated not by war or rebellion, but by the simple lack of a reliable water source. A logistical failure halts a potentially world-changing social experiment.
Tiny hinges swinging huge doors.
Exactly. So here's maybe a final thought to chew on. We saw the whole European push into the New World was kicked off by a massive navigational error by Columbus, an 11,000-mile mistake, and we saw huge shifts in power and culture in Europe funded by things like selling indulgences, which many saw as deeply corrupt. So considering that, how much of our path to this current globalized world wasn't driven by careful planning or rational choices or even superior ideas, but actually by sheer accident, massive contradictions, and maybe just the unpredictable consequences of human ambition and error, how much is planned and how much is just stumbled into.